Coin traders, what's going on? How we doing? Thanks for joining me for the show, looking at ICP, Internet Computer, ICP on that ticker. Been a little bit since we did look at ICP the last time we actually talked about ICP. We were looking at this falling wedge pattern that actually did see this bull break, but ultimately did have that lack of follow through and ultimately did see retracement. So now we're going to talk about this current sideways pattern and the current candle that looks like it's starting to have a little bit of upside movement here in the show today. Now, if you're not following me here over on Twitter or X, would recommend it. We do talk about ICP a lot, and specifically recently did talk about a $10 psychological target that we're looking at having struggle for ICP. So did want to do a big coverage on that here in the show today. So yeah, once again, at coin_trades is the handle for over on Twitter or X. Looking forward to chatting with everyone over there. Okay, so starting out in the daily chart, and do want to talk about this $10 psychological target that we're looking at. So drawing a price line pretty much right at the $10 level. And as you can see, ever since we did have our big trend high come in and retrace below this $10 psychological level, have had wicks fail to close on top of this multiple attempts. So we're looking at a very strong attempt to ultimately see a price actually rally up above this $10 psychological level. Once that does end up flipping, hopefully we can hold it as support, and that'll be a very nice big point of accumulation for a longer term upside move, especially after seeing it reject for so much coming back from this current trend pop. Now, one of the things that's very good right now is that we're still seeing a very nice support on this daily of the 12-period exponential moving average. So even looking left here before the big rally and pop that did push the current trend price up right now to 1190, very nice support and defense of this 12-period exponential moving average. So now being able to reclaim it and hold it is a very, very good sign. Typically what we actually do end up seeing once we have these rallies is a little bit of sideways consolidation, ultimately kicking off this period before the next big leg. So right now, since our big upside resistance point at 10 is starting to rally up and actually get tighter and tighter and tighter between the support that is rising on this 12-period EMA, that does give a lot more hope for the bulls to actually be able to break through and hold a close on top of this $10 psychological level. Now, do want to look at volume down here on the bottom, because coming off of the trend high, actually had decreasing bearish volume, and also now we're looking at lows for selling pressure, meanwhile maintaining these supports. So the fact that we're not seeing continued selling pressure increase, along with the fact that if we actually look at the daily candles on this chart, we're actually seeing, for example, not only the current since it hasn't closed yet, but even the most recent bearish candle that closed yesterday fits inside and is actually a bullish engulfing for the previous bullish day. In addition, the previous bullish day that closed actually fit most of the three previous bearish day candles inside of it. So despite the fact we have this nice upside wick showing a lot of selling pressure and still holding that close below the $10 psychological, we still know that we do have a lot of buying upside pressure, especially since these bearish moves kicked off so well off this 12-period exponential moving average. Now, one of the things that we've talked about on the show, not so much recently, but specifically on the last cycle and move anyway, is that on these type of bullish moves, typically when we do go parabolic, we'll actually see big parabolic moves. Then we actually consolidate, tighten up, and then that's when we see the next leg that does lead to a greater parabolic cycle start. So ultimately, that could be what we were expecting. So let's actually go ahead and flip over, for example, on the weekly chart here. And if we do look at this weekly, very nice upside wick that closed, and potentially not necessarily calling for a huge breakout, but if we do end up seeing that, then that could be our big next move to the upside. Obviously, that's very speculative and hype driven right now, but nonetheless, that is the type of scenario that we see when that actually does happen. So seeing all of this consolidation move for the ICP chart after having a big pop off and rally, consolidation like this is normal, and we know that it does take a little bit before ultimately we do see the next big breakout and the next big move to the upside. Now, one of the things that we actually need to go ahead and look at here is the overall Bitcoin chart, because one of the things that's notable is that we actually had the very first close here, and let's actually clear this up a little bit. So if we actually zoom in on the current pattern, still on the daily, we actually had the first daily close right now below the 26-period EMA on this daily Bitcoin chart. So if we zoom out, we actually haven't seen that since right around the time we had our initial upside move around the middle of October. So held support above the 26-period EMA, held support in between the 12 and 26-period EMA, and then maintained support on top of the 12. And as you can see, big support on this overall tightening range. But so the fact that now we did find that close and break below does start to invalidate this support zone as a strong indication for that support. So Now we're actually looking at the 26 to the 50, which is the next leg down, which also, if we look left, would actually put us in the middle of about this low pullback point, pretty much taking out the opportunity for a tightening range and increasing the likelihood in that instance of setting a Bitcoin a lower low, especially after a lower high came in. Now we know that we're looking at about January 10th, so about a week and a half to 2 weeks for having a Bitcoin ETF. And most people are expecting a sell the news event, since all of this move to the upside was pricing in a very speculative announcement for that Bitcoin ETF. So a sell the news event would potentially even trigger a longer term sell-off, even down to about the $37,000 level. So why are we talking about all this? Well, this has a great impact on the overall altcoin space as well, and the overall crypto market space as a whole, because a lot of excitement and euphoria has been driven into crypto based on a bullish, optimistic outlook about this type of announcement coming into the crypto space. So likely in that event, despite the fact that we are having a little bit of independence for altcoins right now from sideways Bitcoin prices, we know that if Bitcoin just completely dumps and does start to retrace on some of that news, then we're going to expect to experience that as well in a greater capacity with altcoins, which actually would rub off onto Internet Computer ICP right now. So now on this ICP daily chart, I want to actually pull up the technical indicator, specifically look at the stochastic RSI here, because we are seeing a little bit of a bearish cross, or bullish cross, excuse me, and especially after now this oscillator has retraced to the downside below the 20 line, we're looking at that bullish cross being the next direction to the upside that typically we do see when we have a lot of price upside gain, just like we've seen on this last direction. So to actually have overall sideways price trading more or less, meanwhile allowing these oscillators to get back down to where they can actually roll over and see bullish pressure again, is a very good sign that we look at, especially if we talk about a future and a potential breakout scenario where we could be looking at the next leg to the upside. Okay, so doing a flip over into the 4-day chart right now, look at the EMA's full bullish formation, also decreasing bearish bars on these. And as you can see, these bodies on these bearish bars didn't even fit that much inside of this candle. So pretty much only about the top 10% or so. So not much sell-off pressure coming in, showing that a lot of this level has been maintained. And especially now that we have gotten on the current candle, a bullish breakout from inside bars. So if we actually look at the 3 previous bars, the price range on those actually fits inside the price range for the previous bar. So that's a consolidation signal. And now that we have seen a new higher high on this candle, that's a bullish breakout indication. So for this 4-day chart, we do have less than a day left. And especially with this type of body shaping up for a candle, especially bullish, that is a good sign. Now, obviously, we wish we would have had a little bit higher volume, but that does free up the door, especially on a nice breakout confirmation, to on the following bar have a little bit of increasing bullish volume, just like we did on the current recent pop and spike on this big leg to the upside. Now flipping into the 4-hour chart here to talk about some bearish scenarios and some lower levels. Obviously, we are approaching the $10 psychological and having a little bit more strength to the upside, but do want to talk about the current supports to the downside and what we could expect in the event of a little bit more of a bearish retracement scenario. So right now, big downside support zone between 853 and 866. These are big tested points that have confirmed downside support on multiple attempts. So looking at the current scenario and setup, we actually found our high, set our low, now made a higher high, currently now set a higher low, and then looking to top out this current 4-hour trend to make that next new higher high and also see that close on top of the $10 psychological level. On this pullback too, we actually had decreasing bearish volume, so we did know that the selling pressure exhausted, maintain that higher low. Likely in this instance, we will end up seeing a new higher high on top of this current trend high above 10.5. If we look at closing level of resistance, though, we are going to be looking at pretty much right around 1030. And then up above that, we will be looking actually at a resistance point coming in about 1057. Still got plenty of room upside, though, and we're looking at closing resistance just below 11,327. So in the event we actually do see a close on top of $10 psychological, I would actually love to see consolidation and support get established on top of this $10 psychological level before running up to tackle the 1030 and above levels. But I would expect this to actually be a pretty short time frame of when we'd actually see prices sitting on top of this 1030 to 1057 zone before actually breaking out into a new trend higher high. Like we mentioned, though, that could see great impacts if we do get a Bitcoin announcement that is kind of more of the bearish sell the news type event and likely in that instance, we would end up seeing a lower high come in, and then obviously a downside sell-off direction. But like we said, that's pretty much expected to be before January 10th, which actually is pretty far out. So let's go ahead and draw that here over on the chart. So the blue line over here is January 10th, so we still could see plenty of opportunity for the bulls to actually drive prices up before this January 10th date, which we could see that sell-off pressure starting on an announcement about the Bitcoin ETFs coming in. Okay, so right now, going to actually flip over into the weekly and talk about what would happen if we do see a nice bullish break out of this, because we could potentially be looking up to the next leg to the upside, about the $15 level, just shy of that. So that would end up being less than a 55% move to the upside, but a lot of great new supports now to the downside. And especially now, if we look at these exponential moving averages on this weekly, we're looking at a very nice formation and setup that we actually have never seen before for this ICP chart, because on this weekly, the exponential moving averages have always been in a downside bearish formation. So the fact that now we're actually starting to see a bullish cross, complete bullish cross of the 12 on top of the 50, as well as the 12 on top of the 26. So the only thing left to see now is just waiting for the 26 to actually rally up and cross above this 50 period EMA, meanwhile maintaining this 12 period. That'll be a very nice setup. So even on the event of a pullback, still be looking at supports, very nice, that would align with the price support zones from about 740 to 750, and then even the current of about 850 to 865. I would see a very strong case, even in the event of a sell-off in a downside sell news type of event, maintaining the 750 support and even holding this level as a longer-term support before a longer upside bullish move for the next leg to the upside here. So that is kind of more of the bearish scenario in the event we do see some sell-off here from a ETF announcement. And so even if we want to talk about how that impacts based on Fibonacci, so on this weekly, down from the current trend low to the current trend high just below 12, a pullback to those levels would be about the 61.8, which would ultimately be a price of 630 at a low. The 50% retracement would be about 737, so that's ultimately a very nice downside target as well. So realistically, even in the most bearish scenario right now, I wouldn't see prices sustaining longer and lower than 61.8% retracement, which would be 630.07 right now for the overall move. If we do want to look at Fibonacci's, though, from the recent move, then we could be looking at a few different levels, but overall still the same. So even on the 50% retracement, 798, and down to 61.8 would be 706. So still right around this overall zone in range, which would also intersect nicely with these exponential moving averages, as well as looking left some of the previous weekly highs for resistance coming in. So very nice downside supports, which I would expect to see anticipated. And so it would be kind of shocking right now to see ultimately anything coming in soon where we would be looking at new lower lows and trends finding support below that. So that is what we're looking at right now, needing to find defense and close on top of that $10 psychological level for the bulls. Otherwise, we will be eyeing support that the bulls need to hold right around the 1065 down to 865 to 850 zone. Otherwise, we will be looking at a little bit more slippage below that. But yeah, especially since we have been seeing overall longer sideways trading, I would expect some of those lows of support to maintain in probably just a matter of time now before this $10 psychological sees that break and close, and then hopefully maintains that as a new level of support. So that is going to go ahead and wrap it up. Would love to hear everyone's thoughts, predictions, issues, disagreements, all that stuff down in the comments sections. Do love chatting with each and every one of you down there. Appreciate all the continued love and support as always as well, and make sure if you do hit those thumbs up, like, and subscribe buttons if you have not done so just yet and you did enjoy the video. That is going to do it for now though, so stay safe, take care, and I'll catch you back in the next video.